Hi, my name is Chris Z, and I'm from CyberData Pros. I am a data privacy and security analyst, and I'm here to introduce my friend Corey. Corey?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So my name is Corey Cienza. I'm a senior data privacy and security analyst here at CyberData Pros.
Today, I will be talking to Corey about pen testing and what it can do for the business. Stick around if you'd like to know more. So I just want to jump right into it. We've been getting a lot of questions, comments about, you know, from our clients and partners about pen testing recently.
Right.
Can you explain to me, you know, what is it and how can it help your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So penetration testing, or pen testing, as we like to call it, is in essence a simulated cyber attack on your IT infrastructure or systems. Really, this can include things like cloud servers, remote services, endpoint devices, or even things like web applications. The idea is by simulating a cyber attack, we can identify issues such as vulnerabilities in your systems and essentially try to exploit those before attacker has a chance to do the same thing. Doing this allows you to sort of identify your weaknesses as well as get really important information on how they were exploited, how you could fix them, like I said, before an attacker can get to do the same thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Really neat. Really neat. So let me just get this right. So you're saying, testing can help find weaknesses in the organization itself, in their systems.
Yeah, absolutely. So conducting pen tests, we're really able to identify those vulnerabilities in the infrastructure or applications, but we test those potential vulnerabilities to see if they're actually exploitable, see if they can actually be leveraged, and not only that, but to see what's at risk if they are actually going to be leveraged as well. It's also really important to note that pen testing isn't necessarily always just on technical systems as well. So depending on the scope of your engagement or what your client wants, we can actually test the human element as well with something we call social engineering.
All right, so social engineering. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very interesting because that was going to be my next topic. Now, can you tell me a little bit about social engineering and how testing against actual people in the organization works?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to pen test, this part is actually kind of my favorite. It's a really well-known wisdom within the cybersecurity industry that people are always going to be the weakest link in any security chain. It's just always going to be the way it is. So social engineering is essentially our way of describing how we test that human element. One of the most popular ways systems are breached or companies are hacked is with social engineering attacks. So attackers are very, very good at constantly coming up with new ways and new tricks in order to try to get actual users within the organization to give up information like potential passwords, other different various credentials. A lot of times this can be things like a fake email from your boss requesting some information, or
So like a phishing attack.
yeah, it's not exactly.
Okay.
These are phishing attacks, and a lot of these phishing attacks aren't necessarily even trying to get you to give them information directly in that email. Some of them are, for example, maybe a link to a malicious file, like malware, that is going to be able to infect your systems. So what we try to do as pen testers is simulate this activity that we can really gauge how prepared the employees are to kind of be wise enough or alert enough to prevent these style of attacks from being successful.
Other companies out there, companies that we've dealt with or that I've worked with before, have that annual training.
Right.
And they are informed of these kinds of things like cybersecurity attacks or phishing emails. They do that kind of stuff. And, they have plenty of security measures in place, strong passwords, MFA, firewalls. Do you think, the pen testing is really necessary or worth investing in?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a good point to bring up as well. So while having things like really good security measures, strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, all that's really well and good, and everyone still needs to do that. But it's really important to understand that attackers are always going to be trying to get one step ahead. There's always going to be a new exploit. There's always going to be a new trick. So the idea with pen testing is to try to stay yet that one step ahead of them. because they're not going to sit and rest on their laurels, so neither should you. By being proactive and actually trying to find these vulnerabilities, or being proactive and actually training employees regularly against these style of attacks, like I said, the idea is to be one step ahead of the attacker, make them work harder, and again, keep yourself safe at the same time.
Wow, that is a good point. And sometimes things don't work the way you want them to, right? So
sure.
I mean, or things can be misconfigured, or you may not realize it. How common for like a company or organization, are misconfigurations, overlooked security options, in the IT infrastructure?
Right. So funny enough, it's actually very common.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, very, very common. So misconfigurations or even default configurations are still pretty well prevalent, and the thing is, attackers know that as well. So sometimes those default or misconfigurations are actually the easiest way for them to get in. So usually that's one of the first places attackers are looking. In my opinion, pen tests or proper pen testing regimen is really not necessarily just the best, but really the only way to ensure that you've got all of these holes plugged and that you're able to find these sorts of misconfigurations, default configurations that are otherwise super easy to overlook.
Wow. So I wouldn't have guessed that was the case, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So, okay, obviously, security, main point, right?
Right.
To get the pen test done and making sure everything's secure. But the other benefits,
right,
they're out there, right? I mean,
sure.
Could you pretty much tell us, like let's just say, right? Company's very confident. They're like, you know what? We don't need this. We don't need this pen test. We're very confident in our security and all this, right? So how would you, explain to the company the benefits of a pen test?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously having great security, being confident, that's great. And security is going to be the main point, as you mentioned, but it is important to note that there are other benefits to getting them done. So in a situation like that, it's really important to sort of outline the fact that your partners and your clients are going to be able to see your commitment to their data privacy and security. So they know when they work with you that you're putting their security at the top of your priority and they can trust you. So building that brand trust, everybody knows, is super, super important. Right. Not just to keep your current customers or clients happy. So, customer retention, that's a great point, but also bringing on new customers and new clients as well. And there's also, beyond that even, there's a really good case to be made for penetration testing as a cost-saving measure as well.
Well, yeah, okay. So I didn't really think of a financial aspect to it. Yeah, so that makes sense. Absolutely. Okay, so you think for a pen test, spending the money on it, it could save you some money in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've all heard the news stories. I'm sure you've seen them. Data breaches, ransomware attacks. These things are costing companies upwards in the hundreds of millions of dollars. There's actually one scenario that I'm aware of, at least one scenario, where those costs are estimated to have been in the billions.
Wait, billions?
Yeah, with
all right,
B. Yeah.
That is crazy. I mean, I've heard of millions from ransomware attacks or anything like that, but we're talking about billions of dollars. That's insane.
Yeah, potentially. So, like I said, I know of at least one case where that is true. So, really, when we talk about a rigorous pen testing regimen, we're really talking about really staying on top of the ransomware vectors, the zero-day exploits, the things that attackers are going to be looking to actively exploit to get those, to get that big money, to get that payout. So we're not just talking about stolen money when we're talking about these costs. These costs include things like regulatory fines, the cost of the stolen data, recovery costs, lost productivity for the times that your systems are indisposed. Tell you all the ways that data breach can cost the company.
I mean, I know it, and we've seen it on the news plenty of times. I mean, of cyber attackers attacking businesses, ransomware. I mean, no kidding. You mentioned pen testing as regimen, meaning you would recommend getting it, do it more than once.
Sure.
So if that's the case, how often should a company or organization get it?
Sure. So obviously there's going to be a lot of factors that come into play as far as how often or how regularly it should be done. As a super general overarching For everybody, we always recommend annually, at the very least. Obviously, there's going to be things like size of the organization, complexity of the organization, their internal systems, what kind of data is housed in-house as well, or if you have, what kind of data you're holding. Is it PII? Is it PHI? Or health information? Things like that. So all of those are going to factor in how often you want to do that. Larger or maybe more complex organizations, especially ones that have potentially a lot more to lose. Maybe they're housing some of that personal health data or personally identifiable information, or they've just got a large system of data that could be potentially worth a lot. We recommend for those companies to really look at twice a year or biannually as that minimum bar.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so it depends on the organization and company,
Right.
Annually or yearly, so doing it twice a year. That that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Corey, I really appreciate you coming in today.
Absolutely.
We kind of ran out of time, but I'm glad you came in and talked to us a little bit about pen testing. For me, I definitely learned a lot. I've learned something new today, and it was great. Thank you very much.
Awesome. It was great to be here.
I hope everybody watching got some great insight and information about pen testing. If we didn't answer any of your questions, please comment it down below.
Yeah, we're always looking at our comments, and we'll be happy to answer your question as soon as we can get to it. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on this video, and reach out to us at cyberdatapros.com if you have any more questions.